we've been together, we've been married 27 years. We still like each other a lot, so we spend a lot of time together. School's just having its 20th year this year, so that's really cool too. And so I'm sorry I didn't bring my name tag. I'm not being a very good model to my coworkers today, but you know, I can be found right up at the curved desk, the room to the right, and you'll see the little dog outside my space that says Presley is in or Presley is out. Does anyone know what that means yet? Presley is in, Presley is out.
The dog?
Yeah. So there's a dog. It's one of our family pets. We have 4. I want to have more, but for now we're going to stick with 4. Presley, and so he comes in, and we'll talk about him a little bit. A lot of kids come visit him. So if your kiddo's having a tough morning, it's a good idea sometimes to say, let's go say hi to Presley, and then we'll walk back to the studio together. So wow, I've just been in meetings for 2 hours straight with the different sets of families, so I'm taking a little turn. But I really encourage, maybe something you want to watch, what we just did over the last 2 hours with 2 groups of our teens families. It'll be up on our Inform Montessori blog when this gets up there as well. And so it's some great information about the changes that are happening at this end of the building as the kids graduate. So I know it's a little bit further away for some of you, but it might be cool to think about. Some of you might not know, but the I-STEP is our graduation qualifying exam. It's called I-STEP 10 at the high school level. And if teens don't pass it, they have to keep taking it every year. And we estimate that for some teens, 30% pass rate, by the way, from the whole state for I-STEP 10 math. And so those about 70% that don't pass it usually don't ever pass it, and they have to keep taking it for 2 years. And so we estimate they probably spend 100 hours in preparation and taking that test. And now the state says you don't have to do that anymore. You have other ways to show that you're ready to graduate. So that was so exciting. But that whole meeting for the 2 hours prior was all about that. And it'll be on our Informed Montessori blog. But today we're talking about how we can acclimate you here. So I first want to know more about who you are. So if you have a child in the 3 to 6 level, most of you, yeah, 6 to 9 level, 9 to 12, 12 to 14, 14 to 18-year-olds. Some of you are like, whoops, ages or grades. I know. We say things different. I'm just acclimating you already. I'm just putting you into an emerging class. So this is very informal, but the goal is to try to answer what we think are mostly the frequently asked questions from families that are new, so they can feel as comfortable in the school as possible. So we'll start with sharing with you, and Chris, actually I'd like to introduce the staff that are here. So Chris is actually a new staff member and a parent at the school. You want to tell where you are and what ages you work with?
Sure. I'm in 3 to 6, and it's
In Quatrefoil.
in Quatrefoil Studio.
Yep. So 3 to 6-year-olds. Just so, no, it's fine. Just for everyone else.
I'm Kelly Coots. I'm in the admin services and the finance.
Right.
My name is Prerna. I don't get offended if you butcher my name. And I work in the administrative services. Anything related to facts, your kids' admission, enrollment, I can help you with that.
What?
Glenn Pondren, family liaison. I think I've met most of you all one-on-one, so nice to see your faces again. But yes, Prerna and Melissa, you will get a lot of contact with if you haven't already. So thanks for coming out.
I'm Brandy Mattingly. I do health services and curb desk support, so I'm the new smiling face that sits there at the desk when you walk by.
Hi, I'm Melissa Wiesinger. I'm the Expansion Development Coordinator. You'll get a bunch of emails with my smiling face on that. I send all the emails for the school. I'm responsible for fundraising, marketing, inviting people to see the school who aren't familiar with it, and of course happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, so here are all of us. There's our staff picture this year. So we have one of our graduates stand up on the riser there in the cupola and take that picture of us. And actually, I ordered a copy of that to go in the cupola a week and a half ago, and I just remembered I never picked it up, so I should go to Walgreens later. Keep going. So parent involvement partnership, are they ready?
They're cleaning up. I just sent Brandy to grab it.
Okay, let's come back to that slide. So we'll keep going. So here's the cupola staff. You met all of us. And this is Mike and John. They're our environmental maintenance staff. And here's the teen staff, big group of them. That personalized process, so that's the 12 to 18-year-old staff. And there's the elementary staff, so 6 to 12-year-olds. And early education staff. And there's Presley. So Presley is a, who knows, he's a mixed breed that we, when our oldest, who was in the first graduating class of Community Montessori, was about to graduate, we had rescued a little white dog in our neighborhood and never could find a home, and then 3 months later the people came and said, that's our dog. We were all heartbroken. So she's like, I want to bond with one more pet before I go away to college. And so when we were in Florida with my siblings, and we rented this big house, and we're sitting on the beach, and this huge golden doodle comes up, and we're petting it. It's just the most majestic animal. And Glenn goes, if I ever get another dog, that's what I would get. And so Caitlin, by the time we got back to the rental house, had found all these rescued golden doodle, labradoodles kind of things. And so this was Presley, and so we brought him home. He's gone through training at Red Cross as a therapy dog, and so we did some volunteering with Wellstone for a while, and he's been at the school. He's 7 years old. He looks like an old man, but if you see him run out of here and run through the grass at the end of the night, you know that he's just a pup at heart. So, but he has lots of visitors. Kids come up and read to him or sit with him, so do adults. So you're welcome to always just pop in. There's a little couch back there, and you can sit with. You can have your child sit with him, and that's all fine too. So let's go back up, and we'll do the PIP presentation. So Melissa Cole, who's here, who's the chair of PIP. PIP stands for Parent Involvement Partnership. And so I'll let her take it from there.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and we have some other PIP members here that are in the back, Dan and Sarah, Jessica and Kelly. And our job is to help organize with the school community building functions, like we have our 5K coming up at the end of September. We're planning a bonfire in October. And then we do winter gifting, and spring celebration is our biggest event of the year. Each year we sign a commitment to volunteer 10 hours of our time, whether it's through donations in the school or through going out trips. And you can email us at pip@shiningminds if you have questions about that. We can help direct you to how you can volunteer and who you need to contact besides us. We also do fundraising through Box Tops and Kroger. So if you go into Kroger and you designate Community Montessori, you need just make sure you choose our Community Montessori, because I think another one pops up when you type it in as your what is it? Community
Just community support.
Yeah. And then we also we get money back for a picture day. So like when you order pictures, we get a percentage of that. And everything that we raise, we donate back to the school, either directly to the school or through PIP grants, which are generated through the studios, and the teachers can ask for help with travel expenses, which then helps you not have to pay as much for going out trips. We've helped with prom. It is. So everything you donate goes right back to the school. We keep very, very little to help.
What's your salary, Melissa?
I'm free.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You're all free.
I'm free.
Dan's like, what?
So, yeah, we help with Staff Appreciation Week. We organize staff meals. We send out monthly emails. Sometimes they're more than monthly, called PIP Connection, and it'll have volunteer opportunities in it, and events that we have coming up. But feel free to stop any of us in the hall if you see us, and if you have any questions, and we'll get you where you need to go, or answer your question if we can. And you can always just contact us at Pip at Shining Minds.
How much do they pay to be a member of PIP?
It's free.
So it's free too?
Yeah.
Wow.
You're automatically a PIP member.
Any questions for Melissa or the PIP council? Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Get us back to where we were at history, I think. So I always think it's important, you know, when I was in school, I never really understood history. I kind of just repeated the content that I was told. And once I got really interested in history when I was in college and decided to become a history teacher, it all changed, right? And I realized context matters and perspective matters. So I want to spend a minute to just talk about that because as we enter our 20th year as a school, you know, Glenn and I were just like you guys, looking for where we wanted our children to be. And at the time they were 2.5 and 4.5, and you know, I was an educator. I thought I knew schools and learning, and then we had children, and I thought, what do we believe? And Glenn had gone through some public, and we had both gone through public and private, and what do we want for our children? And we were watching this segment on, I think it was 60 Minutes, on Montessori education, and I thought, how did I get through 4 years of school without knowing that? And at the same time, there was a school opening locally, and so I went and visited, and I was shocked that I couldn't even see the teachers, and children were moving about, they were doing their own things, they had these long strands of beads they were counting, they were sitting and making, cutting up bananas and eating them. It was just an environment that I didn't really know could exist. And I came home and said to Glenn, I want to leave my high salary job and start a school. He said, what? I thought we were going to retire doing this other thing. And I said, I don't know, I just feel like we need to do this thing, you know, because it's important, you know, and where children go to school and who they're around and what their influences are is really important. So started talking to other people in the community, and they got interested and started commuting to Cincinnati, to Xavier University, where I received my master's in Montessori education, and started to get people that wanted to help us to do this, and talk to people about nonprofit or for-profit. The kids always think Glenn and I own the school. It's very cute. And I said, no, we put all of our time in, and one day we'll say, bye-bye, thank you, you know, and that's it, because it's a nonprofit. And so it really belongs to the community. And I wouldn't want that any other way, and that's the reason why Melissa can do her role at the school, because she can take that nonprofit status and help us to build partners in the community, which we've had fantastic partners in the community, and so we will continue to do so. But I went and found this group of people to be our founding board members and said, okay, here's what I want to do, and if you hire me to be in this position, then I ask you to be a part of, and that would be is to have a school that was for birth all the way through high school. Actually, it was for 3-year-olds at that point, but now we're birth all the way to high school. At an age level every year, so we start with 3 to 6-year-olds. And I had researched enough about charter school law that I thought we could do that too. And so we could make a school that any child could attend, because I thought that was important. That Maria Montessori started the Montessori philosophy for all children, not just families that have $15,000 to $20,000 a year to pay for tuition. And so that's also really important. And so I continued to lobby for charter school law from about 1996 till it was passed in 2001. And I went back to our families in 2001. We've been in school now for 3 years, and said, okay, here's the deal. The law passed, here's the pros, tuition free, here's the cons, standardized testing, etc. But what do we think? And so we sat in a room about this size with about 50 families, and they said, yeah, we should convert to a charter school. Let's do it. So a lot of things have changed in 20 years, but I still think it was the very best possibility for the community. One of the most exciting things for some of you in the room right now that we've been able to do is that the law was always stated that families had to lottery for our kindergarten even if they were here. And this year we got approval to be able to allow any of our current 3 to 4-year-olds to be automatically get into kindergarten. So you will. So that is very, very exciting. You're the first to know. So if your child will be of kindergarten age next year and they're 4-year-old in the program, then it's not an automatic. I said automatic, but it's an almost automatic because you get preference. So no one from the outside can beat you in that kindergarten spot. Yeah. So that's exciting. So a lot of things have changed over time. Does anyone have any questions about the charter school part besides what I just said? Yeah.
Is that for the half-day program too, in the 3 4s?
As far as if they're a 4-year-old going to kindergarten next year, yeah, as long as they're here and enrolled, then they would get preference into kindergarten.
How many kids are in class?
Like how many of us are in the room? No, I'm just kidding. Typically 48.
48?
Yeah. And so in years past, we would be able to get everyone into kindergarten, so I would hope that would happen. In this situation, it's not 100% guaranteed, but maybe you'll be second or third on the wait list. What the most horrific thing was is that this process has made some of our families, because anyone from the outside could also come in, and I can understand the reasons for that, but then they could be 11th or 12th on the wait list and never get in. And the reason we were able to get that to change is the other neat thing that happened is that we can now start providing, we have the option to provide special education services to 3 and 4-year-olds. Prior to this year, which that's been something I've been working on personally for about 3 years, that if we have children as a 3 or 4-year-old, that we can also serve them and get some funding for them. As it stands right now, families would have to go do that in an outsourced way, like to an outsourced speech language pathologist. That doesn't mean that everyone that gets private speech would also get speech here, because there's a different set of parameters. But it is really exciting that some of the ways that we can support families for our 3 and 4-year-olds have now just really broadened. So we have this whole staff of like 15 people that support children with exceptionalities, and so they can be supporting those people in a more formal way too. So, good news. You're just the first ones to hear it. Yeah. So a focus on the whole child. It's funny, I try to go and visit different preschool programs. Some of you have heard about the Pathways program that allows for free pre-K. I do think that that has affected some of the private preschools in the area, and it's been something that I looked at, and I tell you, I looked at it with a fine-tooth comb. I probably spent 50 hours on this project to try to see if we could become Pathways, so that families that couldn't afford to pay the tuition for 3 and 4-year-olds could come here. But I could never find that all the things our staff would have to do to be licensed to be Pathway could outweigh the benefits. We'd have to change our whole program. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like, as it stands now, his name's Representative Baining, who's the one that wrote that law. Every time I see him, he's from Crawfordsville? No, that's someone else. Anyway, I can't remember which you know who he is? Anyway, I've really said to him, like, why are we doing this? There's so many more rules for the 3 and 4-year-olds, and we're doing something, it's the same age level, with 5. So anyway, if that ever changes, we'll look at that. But for now, I don't want to sacrifice our programming, which is this whole child approach, to make sure we have a dress-up, make-up stage in our preschool program, so we can get this process. So social, emotional, aesthetics, wellness, creativity, school success, and aesthetics. Those are all the different things that we work on. School success, not so much the 3 and 4-year-old age. And down here at this end of the building, like, here's the deal. When you take an SAT question like this, they're looking for this kind of thing. And so even though you want to be creative, this is the way you would follow it up to get the points you need. So that's the school success part. We have over 600 children. That number is actually different. I'm going to change that. We have about 97% returning this year, which is unbelievable. Very, very humbling. We have about 100 on the wait list. I wanted to ask you about that, Glenn. Is that still about right? We're very humbled by being a member of this community, for sure.
Can I just make a statement?
Sure.
What you indicated, just what you were all on the same page on the 2 things. You'll be a 4-year-old, you still have to be 5 by August 1st.
Oh, thanks, yeah.
So
the state changed something this year, and I might be the reason for it. I'm sorry, because I'm an advocacy person. So anyway, so with this whole Pathways process of trying to get free preschool in public schools, what some schools were doing was they were having a 4-year-old kindergarten and a 5-year-old kindergarten, and so that those kids were getting paid twice by the legislature. And so when the legislature learned about that in the spring, they passed a law that said no longer would early entry kindergartners be funded. So if a child turns 5 after August 1st, they can't be enrolled in kindergarten unless the family decides to pay early childhood tuition. So we actually lose about $800 from the state by doing that, but if the family wants us to do that, it's horrific. A child could turn 5 on August 2nd, and they can't be enrolled in kindergarten as far as the state funded part. You have to still pay for it in private tuition. So what that does mean though, for some families, is if they turn 5 after that, and they do pay for that 4 or 5-year-old year, we can still call it kindergarten, and we can still put you in the first grade lottery as a kindergartner currently. So that's the positive. The negative is we can no longer do early entry kindergarten as far as it being state funded.
So to add to the good news, I just counted, it's only like low 30s of 4-year-olds we currently have there. And so if your 4-year-old turns 5 before August 1st, you're guaranteed to get it.
That's awesome. Any other questions about that? So, how many have been to our website? Do you know the little link up there that says current families on the far top right? Have you been there before? What did you find? The school calendar? Anything else? What did you say?
I didn't look at it.
You haven't looked yet.
Logging volunteer hours.
Logging volunteer
All the
hours.
phone numbers of staff people.
Yeah, all the staff directory information.
Babysitter, I think.
Yeah, the babysitter information, which is being updated right now, which some of you might be interested in, so we have the teens go through a process with that. Are you on that list? So there you go, you got a celebrity in the room. So, you know, there's a lot of different things in there, so we really encourage you to go to that spot. There's also the new absence waiver process that's in there. I think that might be a separate item, yeah. So our family handbook is on there. We read, right? Did you see the looks on their faces? We reread every single handbook and thing that we create every single year. We're not just throwing you stuff that we don't do anymore. Because see, that's a big deal of mine. I don't like to say things that we don't do any longer. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'd say it's pretty perfect. And what happens is as soon as we make it official, we're like, oh, we have this other change we wanted to make. And so we put it in a file to think about next time. But anyway, please read it. It's really, really helpful. And we do put things in there that we think will be helpful, and we update it with new information every single year. And all those 2 meetings I had before you came in, all that's going to be updated next year. Put that in the file. So absence waivers. It's not a big deal for 3 and 4-year-old families. It starts really being a commitment at the kindergarten level. But it is really important for you to think about if your child is missing school. If your child is sick, your child is sick. They should stay home and be sick and get well. So we don't want them to try to do something on top of that. Sometimes a 7-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 15-year-old is going on a trip with the family. So you've planned this, mom's got this business trip in Arizona, you decided to drive out there the week before spring break, and you decided to be gone for that whole extra week. So your first step is to email your child's teacher or advisors, whether we call them down the teens program, and say, we're going on this trip, we brainstormed with our daughter, we were thinking that she was going to budget and plan for all the gas that we spend, and for, you know, this kind of thing. She's also going to learn orienting to a map. We're actually going to use actual maps and not our phone maps. Anyway, so you come up with what those things are that you want to present will be her learning, and then you kind of negotiate with the teacher, you know. So we're thinking that if she did these 9 things, that would count for these 4 days of our trip. And so that you could email back and forth with the teacher about the idea, and then once you have the plan in place, you go to current families, you click on absence waiver, and there's a digital screen that pops up. And you fill in your information. Here's the things we did based on the plan that you made. You hit submit. It goes right to the teacher. The teacher can look at it, ask you any questions if they have it, sign off on it, give it to Prerna, and then the absence is waived. And why that's important is that it gets really important when they get down to this end of the building, because we, you know, oftentimes a teen might just need a mental health day, or need a day where they're going to visit some colleges or so forth. And we want them to start that process early. And so, not that you can't use it all the way, kinder all the way up, but we really encourage you to really communicate a plan, make the plan, complete the waiver, It was really hard for parents because it was always a paper form, so they had to find a way to print it. How many have a printer at home? Well, there's still a few of us. Does it work? I'm just kidding. Do you know how to set it up with your phone? No, it's just the on and on, right? And so this way, you don't have to print it out, you don't have to write it out, you don't have to bring it to school. You can do it all from your computer or phone, and then they can take it from there. So that's one of the really big new things this year that I think will be really helpful for families. We send out a lot of emails. We do, and we don't do it because we just want to harass you. We do it because we're trying to be helpful. And so I know it's hard. Like, I get all the emails from all of the studios every single week. I don't read every single one of every single week, but I read most of them every week. But you're just going to get one or two or however many kiddos you have. That'll usually come on Friday. For most studios, they'll send an email on Friday. They'll give you updates from the studio. And then on Monday, we'll send the cupola notes, which Melissa will send out. And those will be kind of the general school information. Sometimes we'll overlap the information if we think it's really important, like picture days coming up next week. And so that was in the cupola notes. It was also probably in the studio notes. We really encourage you to read both. If you have any questions, you can always reply to those emails, and a person is on the other end. We're also probably one of the few schools that still answers a phone. But, you know, we really encourage you to just communicate with us. We're here, and we want to help you with that, and we want to help you be successful. So if there's ever a question or comment on there, please just let us know. Like, one of the things that the 6 to 9 studio is going on a going out trip, which is kind of like a field trip, but it's usually more intentional than what we would remember it when we were on these field trips. But they'll tell you, like, please let us know by Friday if your child's not going to come, because then they'll submit that information to Kelly or Karina to go into the FACS program. How big a deal is it, Kelly, to change that 7 times? It's time consuming. So it's really important if they know the first time, if that's not going to happen, because we really ask that if you don't let them know in that time period, that you pay for the fees, because they create the fees based on who's going. And so we've already committed for the school buses, they've already got a PIP grant for part of it, whatever that process is, and so we really want to help that to be successful. Usually the early childhood does not go on going out trips. Their going out trips are in the back 4 acres. So you don't even have to pay for those at all, except for removing ticks. But otherwise, it's free. But when they get a little older, oftentimes they'll have trips, and we contract with buses to take us places. And so you communicating back to that is also really important. So, as we just talked about when I said 3 to 6-year-old environment and so forth, all of the environments are multi-age. That's very purposeful from the Montessori philosophy, that it's really great to have 3 different age levels. What's neat is to talk to staff members at this time of the year, is when they see the first levels that just moved up from the 3 to 6 in the environment, the early ed staff walk by and are like, wow, look how much they've changed, you know? And so then they also see that child that was the 3rd level and the 6 to 9 move up to the 9 to 12-year-old level. And so when they're in that space for 3 years, it's a really powerful environment, right? Oftentimes, children might come in a little bit more, you know, wide-eyed that first year, maybe not so intentional, sometimes not quite the leader in the environment. And in 2nd or 3rd year, they've become kind of very confident young people as part of that community. And so we love the idea of that multi-age environment. We love when you have children here from 3, 4, and 5-year-olds. It makes a huge difference. I don't do this all the time, and I don't believe in standardized testing, but there's a standardized test called iRead3, and right now it is a test that's given to all 3rd graders in the state of Indiana to see if they can read. And when I correlated that several years in a row with the children that were here since they were 3, for the children that were here since they were just 5, automatically 25% more were able to show that they could read over the kids that just started here when they were 5. This year we have 6 children that have come from the nursery. So they've been here, some of them since birth, and now they're there. I can't even imagine what that's going to do. But not that I care about standardized tests, but I also think it's interesting how developmentally they can shift because they've been in the same environment with that level of consistency. Snack and lunches, the different parameters. What do you know so far about snack and lunch? They bring it. Yeah. What are the parameters? What studio, what age level?
The 3 to
6-year-olds. Yeah. So do you remember what the parameters are for snack?
If it's dessert, it has to be very small and not all the time.
In their lunch, yeah.
Fruits and vegetables, it has to be containers they can cook in.
Yeah, so for their lunch, really encouraging that they don't need an adult for support. So independence is a huge component for us at the 3 to 6 level. We really want to support them in doing it themselves. You know, I think one of the reasons why kiddos can feel so grounded in our early childhood environments, and we've got a few kiddos that are still crying their first or second day in, but you know, is that they feel empowered because they can do all the things themselves. And so for SNAP, the same way. You know, we're not looking for you to bring in something from, what's one of those magazines? Good Housekeeping, you know, with this beautiful snack.
It's
for the
Pinterest,
children.
Barbara.
Pinterest. I just been envisioning a Good Housekeeping, like pineapple with little blueberry eyes or something. But that would be a Pinterest thing too, I guess. So anyway, you know, we really encourage that you let them do what they can for that. In the early education environment, it's only fresh fruits and vegetables. And it is amazing how many times a family will come and say, my child does not eat any fresh fruits and vegetables. And by the end of usually the first 6 weeks, but at least by the end of the first semester, they're eating fruits and vegetables, right? Oftentimes, right? And so it really is something that, you know, they can really get that fresh fruit and vegetable as well. So we really encourage that. So if it is their SNAP week, you could give them a budget when they get a little older. You know, that 6 or 7-year-old, that 9-year-old, you can say you've got $37 this week for your budget, and they have to figure that out. And so they're like, oh, the bananas are here. You know, can we go to Aldi's? Because I think Aldi's has a sale on, you know, so they really get that whole learning process of it. So I get it. It's really difficult. We're busy. You know, some of us are grabbing their lunch and we forgot it, and we go back, and we take our lunch, and we go get their lunch, and we bring it back, and you know, so you know, we want to encourage you to do as many things that you can to encourage that independence. And so oftentimes families have young people, even 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, create or support making their lunch every night. And so when they come in to school in the next, you know, or they get ready for school, if they're running late or it took them 15 minutes to put their shoes on this morning, they don't have to try to rush to do that. They just go to the refrigerator and take out the lunchbox because you put that all together the night before. So I know it's hard. We're all busy people, but the more you can create some proactive steps like that, the less it will reduce any stress in the morning. The same with SNAP and guidelines and so forth. What is the hardest thing for the teachers in the early ed is that this parent works really hard. They know it's a SNAP week, and they come in with a plate full of cupcakes, and we're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Fresh fruits and vegetables, and they're like, you know, so we really want to help you be successful with that. Same thing with birthdays. Every studio has their own plan for birthdays. In most cases, if your child's going to bring in something small, like a small cookie, not a nice cookie, you know, because they sit as a community, and usually, especially in the elementary level, they'll hold the world, and they'll revolve around the sun for each year of their life. And they'll share a story about that or pictures. Oftentimes the families come in and are a part of that. And then the children all share and eat something. Can you imagine the icing all over the floor and the children's success if that's what's brought in? So those are the reasons for that. And so some of us go back to our childhood and we think, look, that was so cool when I brought in those cupcakes. We're just asking, those kids will think it's just as cool. They don't have any experiences of childhood like we do in that way. Prepared environment, 3 to 6 through teams, and walking into the studios. So it's different, you know. There's actually doors on the 3 to 6-year-old environment, and they're there for a reason. They're there to keep young people in. They're also there to keep us out, because we want to have only consistent members of the community there. And so that's hard. And for some of you in your first few days of school, you wanted to walk into the classroom with your child, and the teacher probably said, give them a short kiss at the door, and then you can stand at the window where they can't see you for a minute and watch. And so you can see how that's going. And that's not because we don't love you dearly. We know that you are your first primary child's teacher, but it's because our focus is on protecting that total, holistic community and making sure that all the people are in there are consistent with their words and actions, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference when one parent, which has happened to be second year of the school, I had this parent come in and say, can I come in? I want to tell the kids about this thing. I'm like, sure, sounds great. You know, they were a dentist, and so I had all the kids, and you know, they're mostly 3 and 4-year-olds, and they're like, so, kids, brush your teeth. I'm like, okay, yes. It's like, because there are these little bugs that start happening, and you'll get bugs on you. I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? And so I would tell you that I spent all year helping the children to know that they were not actually bugs in their mouth because of the literal interpretation of a 3, 4, and 5-year-old. And so we are super careful and cautious because we love your children too, and we want them to get the same experience that you've anticipated from us with all the humans that are there. So if you want to be a member of the community, September 4th, come back here, and we will talk about how to be a volunteer or sub. Almost 98, 99% of our subbing comes from parents. And so we will go over all those guidelines. I think I talk about that a little bit later, some parts of that. But it really is a whole hour-and-a-half workshop just about how to be a member of the community. And I try to do it from both ends of the building. And so it's not perfect. And so if you go to the workshop, there's kind of a little quiz. It's pretty simple, but it lets you be a part of that. The early ed teachers and the elementary teachers might still say, I want you to come in just to volunteer for a while, you know, because I want to make sure that you're ready for this. We're not going to leave you on your own to do your own lessons or anything like that. You're mostly there as a support person because we have a co-teaching role. So all throughout the building, there's 2 teachers in each environment. So that person, maybe some of you who are subbing in the room, aren't in charge of the whole room because the other co-teacher's there too. So this is a little push for that. I will tell you that, well, I don't know, there's probably 30% of our staffs that were subs at one point. And the other part is the parents that aren't on staff now will say it changed their whole life, you know. It was the thing that helped them to understand how to best work with their child. So it's powerful. So even just, you know, the things like one of the things we'll talk about at the parent volunteer work